well, let's get started. Now, basic essentials for security careers. Why exactly we're doing this? Rather, in the festive season of the more recent computing career fairs yesterday, and as well as the other general career fairs and just application season in general. Now, today we'll be going over just a quick intro of myself and then going into some stories about some of the jobs that White Hat Security Education has seen. Then we'll go into some of the career fields of cybersecurity, just a brief overview of some of them, but there's plenty out there. Then going into some relevant topics and resources that will be useful to know going into applications, job interviews, and just your career in general. Then after that, we'll have Lisa talk about some interview question examples. Now, about me, I am a third-year software engineering major with a minor in psychology and the recent corporate relations officer in CPSec here. And so why am I talking about this, or am I even qualified at all to talk about this, is a good question. I currently TA for the security courses here at CP21, and as well as for one of the software engineering courses, CSC 305, the individual software design development. This past summer, I did product security for GoDaddy. I can talk more about that later. I also did research with one of our faculty here, Dr. Phoenix Fang, on IoT security with a software engineering perspective. And I also did a bit of work with the County of SLO as an HR tech intern for their HR department. Outside of school, I do sporadic cooking because, classes, kind of hard to really do a lot of it. And I play some games, fighting games, Guilty Gear Strive, some MMOs, and some ARPGs. We can talk to me more about that after the talk. Now, some of you may be asking, does this club help? And the brief answer, it depends, which is a very bad answer. But we can go into some nuance about it. So, starting with some of the talks we give, some of them may be good for fueling your interest in some of these security-related topics. For example, sometimes we may have very specific things that may pique your interest in even more general careers. Or again, just this kind of talk as well may just give you some general advice. On weekends, we have Capture the Flags, which are great for resume fodder and just for developing your skills in general. As just a general security practitioner, may that be command line usage, and tons of the other topics that we can go about later. We also have occasionally the career-related events, which are great for just getting to know certain companies that may offer security internships or jobs. And we also, just general networking within the club may help, as the person you're sitting with right now may one day help you get a job in the future. Be honest, unlikely, but you never know. And just in general, just resume fodder, a lot of these you can just straight up list that you were in the Security Education Club at Cal Poly, just as a general member, or if you decide to get an officer position later, that helps. Or while we're still figuring it out, our malware tech team is also great as well. And just to mention a bit about my prior job with GoDaddy, I got my job as a result of a White Hat sponsored event. Some people from GoDaddy, I believe it was their general college recruitment person, and as well as one of the leads on the product security team. It was sometime during COVID online, and it was just a session where they talked about what they did at GoDaddy, and then went into the specifics of the security at GoDaddy as well. And after that, they just had whoever was ever interested in sending them their resumes. And then I want to say most people did at least get an interview from it. And then of course I got my job from it. And so I would very highly encourage going to career-related events, just so that one-on-one individual connection with a company helps a lot. As opposed to maybe say a career fair where one, they go through tons of people in a day, and two, there's other companies around that are also trying to get people. other previous and already graduated club members and officers have gotten jobs. If any of you are familiar with them, John Prentice and Kedwin Chen. I worked with them at GoDaddy over this past summer, and they are now full-time employees there. Viana got her job with Intuit at a Wish and a White Hat sponsored event. And I'm sure Helena Tracy, I remember, also got her job with GoDaddy from there as well. And I'm sure there's plenty of other club members out there that I'm sure have got their jobs as a result of maybe even just having the club listed on their resume. Now, into the actual meat of the presentation itself. To start off with are different career fields that may, within security. For beginners, we have just general software development for security. What that means exactly is, that you may not necessarily be doing a lot of the maybe like incident response or very heavy security stuff, but you're developing some piece of software for the security teams. Even if you're not doing that, generally it helps a lot just to have an understanding of security going into it, because at the end of the day, companies only want, or as best of programmers as they can. And anything that sets you apart from the other person next to you will help. And one of that is just having understanding general security practices and even knowing how to defensively code. On the topic of defensively coding, we'll get into some of those later with our relevant resources and topics. Up next, just security architecture and design. That's a lot of creating like a security architecture and infrastructure within a company. May that be integrating different products like firewalls or just other security-related features in there, and just creating an entire infrastructure so that your company is actually secure against just the random security hacker out there, or even against, if you're at a big company, nation states, which, well, very hard to deal with. After that, we have incident response and management. Those people look into any breaches or incidents that a company goes through, and then they may, depending on the company infrastructure, they may do varying levels of incident response. Some of it they may try to do live, depending on what the incident is, or it's more after the part, and then they have to go through figuring things out, or knowing how to remediate the issue, and then writing a whole after-action report so that future employees and even the general public can understand what's going on. Really, the general public only gets involved when data breaches or anything privacy-related happens. And again, that all happens as a result, or that all can happen through the reports and the investigations done by the people in incident response. Those were more on the defensive side of things related to a company. These ones, especially penetration testing, bug bounties, may fall under more of the actual more offensive stuff. But or say as our last club name, White Hat Hacking. Now, pen testing, to start off with that, it's more a lot of trying to test out a company's systems and hoping they are either well protected enough, or if you actually find something, you can write a report about it, send it back to the company or within the company, so that so that they know that what to fix. Next, we have security-related research. This may be more of a route if you decide to go into, say, like a master's or graduate school. But you can also do research as an undergraduate or just with any companies in general, depending on their structure. I know, just to talk more about that, I did IoT security research with Dr. Fang through the College of Engineering summer undergraduate research program. It's more of a program for people who, one, have never done research, and two, are aimed at a lot of first years and second years. And I would recommend getting in touch to see if, just research with some of our faculty members if you are interested more in that. And you can talk to me if you want to learn more about CERT or just doing research with a faculty member in general. And for our kind of last career field we'll cover, it's some independent or contract type of work. And so you can either just be an independent contractor on your own, reaching out to different companies, or not even necessarily reaching out, but going through maybe public resources so that you can find, or supposedly find, work to do. Security auditing may be if, say, you have your own private firm or private company that maybe get hired or contracted by a company for a certain amount of time, that you can then audit their software systems and their company in general to see if they need to fix anything. Bug bounties are more of a public type thing, so just even any of you can get involved in bug bounty at this instant. There are sites for that we will go over later, but those are really, again, in a way, pen testing their websites, their software systems to see if you can find anything you can report on that may be a security problem in the future. Quick note there, always read fully the details of a bug bounty. If you end up getting, because if, say you end up trying to pen test a website that, well, let's see, is illegal to do because it was not specified in their bug bounty specifications, that would be, a bit of trouble there for you. And then again, just penetration testing is available as a contract type work. Now, going into some of the resources that you should know about going into a security career or even just general software development. First, we have the Open Web Application Security Project Top 10. Before the recent 2021 list that was just released about a few months ago over the summer, we had the 2017 list, which you can see on your left there. And so these are essentially the most common issues that a web application has. And you can read more about their scoring system and how they rank these at their website if you are so interested. But these are primarily what you should generally understand about. So going into just any kind of software development, you may be more aware of these and will hopefully avoid some of these issues. For example, a lot of these injection type problems are a result of lack of or improper input validation, and that could be a whole other topic of itself and talk of itself regarding input validation and sanitation. So yeah, if any of you are interested, I would read more about these individually. Next up, we have the common vulnerabilities and exploits. These are vulnerabilities that have been found by someone and hopefully not yet exploited, but have been discovered and then publicly released to be so that other companies or just anyone in general can maybe figure out what to do against certain vulnerabilities. To note, these are very specific vulnerabilities that have been reported and have then had a report written about them, as opposed to the next one, which is the common weakness enumeration. These are just software and hardware weaknesses in general, much more general than, say, the CVEs, which may be specific to a company or a software product, anything of the sort. CVEs are in the format that you see right there, with, of course, the name for CVE, the year it was found, and then it's a number that was given as a result. CVEs are, there are varying levels of, just like critical levels or vulnerabilities levels, really, that just say like how easy or hard or how severe the issue may be. These are a list of the top common weakness enumerations. As you can see, a lot of these may match up with the open web source, OWASP top 10s. And so again, if any of you are interested, you can read more into these on your own, but unfortunately, we do not have enough time to go over into a lot of these more in detail. Another must-know is the open systems interconnection model. These are 7 different layers that just regard data flow from a very high level. And it starts at the very bottom. Let's start with the physical level, so just like cable connections or just internet connections in general. And then as you move up from there, you get up to the application, where a lot of APIs and actual human-computer interaction exists. And these are, this should be a must-know if you are going into any kind of networking job or any kind of IT job. Not necessarily you should, well, it would help if you know these levels and layers by heart, but again, I would say it would be very awkward if someone asked you to recite the OSI layer by layer. And honestly, I would maybe avoid working for them if they had a question like that. Here's just another more further explanations of each layer. Now, for the resume, and I say for the resume somewhat hesitantly because at the end of the day, to get your first job or just a career in general, you do have to play the game of having a strong resume so that you get past the human resource stage of where they have hundreds, thousands of applicants to go through in a certain amount of time frame to get enough employees onto their teams, really. But in an ideal world, you would be measured as fairly as you can based on your actual merit and experience. But yeah, really playing the game, pad your resume somehow. But you can start off with that with a security capture the flags. We have, again, like I mentioned earlier, we have weekend capture the flag events. Some of them may be a lot already published capture the flag events that have been around for years. But there are occasionally a company hosted or just any general organization hosted capture the flag events that may actually have rewards and prizes on the line. Some of them may actually be some pretty nice, maybe electronics, or maybe even a shot at a job at, say, a company. I know a few years ago, or I don't know if they still do it, Lockheed Martin, if you're familiar with the defense contractors, they had a CTF event that with the top people were given a chance to maybe get an actual interview with the company for their security positions. Google also has a pretty popular CTF event, but from personal experience, they are pretty difficult. But of course, it is Google, and they do have their own Project Zero team. For the next, there are bug bounties. Like I mentioned earlier, some of these sites like BugCrowd and HackerOne, you can go on there and find different companies that are offering a bug bounty program. And again, make sure to read the specifications word by word so you know exactly where to look when doing a bug bounty. And following the constraints as best they can, and maybe also seeing possible rewards they offer so you know to go after it depending on your level of security knowledge. HackerOne is also a great site as well. I forgot to mention, in the Capture the Flag, ctftime.org is a great site for knowing different CTF events that are out there. It's also an international type thing, so there's CTFs going on in different languages and regions. And for the last one, we have just security learning sites in general. We have Hack the Box if you are interested in doing kind of penetration testing and understanding more about, say, breaking into a machine. And even from the very start, Hack the Box itself, you can't make an account. You actually manage to break through their sign-up page. TryHackMe is also a good site, just for an easier site as compared to Hack the Box, just so you learn kind of the basics first and then additional topics as offered on there. Now, a note on certifications, because this can be a fairly divisive topic within getting a security career. And it can be fairly nuanced depending on who you ask. To really start off with it, certifications help a lot for when you're going past the initial HR screening through the resume. Because at the end of the day, the HR representatives don't exactly understand all the security technicalities and lingos that the actual security engineers and the teams understand more of. But ideally, maybe an HR rep would say work with a security team or security manager so that they know how to properly screen for applicants. And there are out there some certifications that admittedly are kind of useless, but there are some solid ones out there which I will go over. And again, that's as part of the resume fodder, resume building game you have to play. But the pros about them, for me, is at least going through certifications, you do get a good amount of experience in kind of a course-like format, depending on where you look, and if you do like kind of an online certifications, you do have the ability to take your time to digest the materials, or even if they have any labs, you can experience yourself. And the cons about them is, one con is that some of them are pretty expensive, sometimes in the range of a few $100s to even $1,000. One thing that I was told is that if you can, if you ever do happen to get your first job or internship before you do any certifications, some companies or even schools may help you pay for certifications. And again, it's really up to you to decide if whether or not you want to go after a certification before trying to enter a job. Another note for certifications is, depending on the certification itself, it may help with, say, when you are becoming a full-time employee, you may start at a pay grade higher than, say, the level 1 security engineering position. Jackson?
I also want to add there, for people who are interested in getting certifications, more specifically SANS, if you're really good at CTFs, there's a specific CTF competition where top winners can receive SANS courses for free. If you guys actually know Kedwin Chen, he made one of those top spots and was able to take a couple SANS courses for free. And yeah, it was a really cool thing to get students involved who were, top performing and want to do that, but don't necessarily have the funds.
Yeah, and to kind of build on what Jackson just said with Kedwin, at GoDaddy, he actually started, after graduating from Cal Poly, he started at a level above the level 1 security engineering because he had one of those certifications. And obviously a better pay from the very beginning helps a lot, and just advancement in general. And like Jackson just said, one of the best certifications and also one of the most expensive certifications you can get is SANS, the ones offered by SANS. They have proper courses that are really solid in content. After that, we have the CompTIA certifications, where they are actually more manageable to pay on your own, but there are a lot more people who take them and then actually get the certification and put them in their resume. I took a course before on the Security Plus CompTIA certification, and the contents in there are more wired towards people who are going into maybe like intro level, beginner level IT positions. So depending on what you're interested in, if say just software development, that one may not be as useful. After that, we have the offensive security certifications. Those are going into a lot of pen testing ones. Those ones I've heard can be pretty difficult, but are great in content as well. And I've heard for that one that you should have maybe like during, say, like a summer or winter break, would want to set aside time to do a course on that. Because they are, when you do pay for it, there are, depending on what level of payment you do have a certain amount of times to access the resources and the labs until you maybe have to actually attempt the exam then. So again, just on certifications in general, it would be a pretty nuanced answer depending on who you ask. And it's really, you should kind of consider exactly what you're aiming after the certification itself, and maybe talking with, say, like an HR representative at a company that you are interested in. Now, to Lisa for some interview question examples.
All right, so you've done all the resume fodder that's even talked about. You maybe got a certification too. You've come to all the White Hat meetings and the CTFs, and you've done the work. Now you've got an interview on your hands. What do you do? Okay, so here are some interview question examples that we'll go over to kind of figure out what the question is asking for, why did the interviewer ask me this question, and how you can answer it and get the job. Explain in detail how you would hack into company name, and explain in detail a recent company hack. So usually the first question will be asked about maybe the company that you're interviewing with, because the interviewer will have the most knowledge about that company and will be able to talk to you about specific details. And explain in detail a recent company hack is asked just to kind of gauge your general knowledge of the security landscape, and if you are paying attention to security news, and if you have interest in security as a whole. So these questions really don't have a right or wrong answer. It's more, they're trying to figure out your thought process and how much you know and how deeply you can go into something like a company hack. How much do you know? How many technical details do you know? Like, what is the depth of your understanding? Tell me about your most innovative project, and tell me about a time you had to work on something you were unfamiliar with. So more than anything, security is about problem solving. It's not just about like technical knowledge. It's also about how do you apply that knowledge, how do you look at problems that are always different and always new, and how do you always know how to find a solution to that problem. So these questions are really aimed at sort of a more behavioral or side of the interview. So they want to know your thought process, how do you solve problems, like are you a resilient problem solver, and can I work with you, can I teach you things, and can I help you grow in this field to become a better security engineer. Do a security threat evaluation of a new feature. So I once got asked this question for a company. They said, we have this new feature coming out, hypothetically, and we want you to do a security evaluation. So what are possible ways that this feature can be exploited, and how can we mitigate those kind of threats? So it's more of a thought exercise. I got some time for myself, and I thought about it, and then I talked through all the different results that I came up with the team. So this is also kind of like the first couple of questions. They really want to know about your thought process and what you know, trying to gauge your depth of security understanding. As security is a really broad field, nobody expects you to know absolutely everything there is about security. So if you know a couple basics and you're able to show them what you do know, that's a really great thing to be able to do. General security questions, OWASP Top 10, like Stephen previously mentioned, CVEs, best practices. These are all things that people also might ask. So as the field of security is super, super big, and there's so many different issues that you can get into, these security questions will sometimes just be asked to gauge like your depth of knowledge and interest in security in general. So if you stick with White Hat, if you come to all our meetings, you'll probably hear a ton of talks about security vulnerabilities. Just like this, you'll learn a lot of information and hopefully be able to use them in your interviews to answer these questions. And then depending on the kind of role you're going for, you might have to do a generic coding type interview. So Stephen mentioned a ton of jobs previously. If you work on a security development team, so you're doing coding before a security team, your primary focus is going to be coding, not security. So you will also sometimes have to do a coding exam. How you can prepare. So we have an intro to security class here, which is really great, CP 321, and we have security tech electives. Currently, we are going to offer wireless and network security next quarter, but you have to take 321, I believe, to get into those, so be sure to take intro to security as soon as possible. CPSec, another great resource. If you're here, you're already doing something right. We're going to hold talks, we have CTFs, and we are working on getting our malware team back up, so the more you're here, the more you'll learn. And also self-study. So as Stephen mentioned, the certification courses or the capture the flags that you can do on your own time. If you spend some time learning about security vulnerabilities, learning about some intro to hacking, it can be a side project, it can be a really good resume booster, and it can help you express a lot of skills in your interview.
All right, and that's pretty much the presentation itself. Thank you for Lisa for covering that last part. Are there any questions or just anything in general on what we went over?
So if I'm a complete beginner to security, know almost nothing, like what should my first steps be? Also, not super like, don't like as of right now, don't plan on pursuing a career in security, just something I really want to learn, something I want to learn.
Mm-hmm. So good question to that. Are you a first year?
First year.
Yeah. So it may be a while, realistically, until you can take the Intro to Security course. Again, depending on our course offerings, and I'm sure the wait list for that course is moving forward will be very full. since I believe the CS catalog now has a security course as a requirement. But CTF? Yeah, CTF is a great, we're doing our best to advertise. But yeah, CTFs are a good start. You can ask me later for some specific ones. You kind of want to learn the basics of them. Just one off the top of my head is Bandit with Over the Wire is a very, very good starter one just to get you introduced to Unix commands, since a lot of security do revolve around that, and or even just general software development in general do. You should have as best of an understanding of the basic bash commands as you can. And then really after that, it's kind of depending on what kind of security. So do you have an idea of something you want to explore more, say like more of the red teaming stuff with penetration testing and trying to find something to break? Or are you doing defensive?
More penetration.
Yeah. So Try Hack Me is a good site to get started with, because if say, assuming from a complete beginner's perspective, the starter level, even like the sign-up level of the Hack the Box may be a little difficult. So you should get as much context and practice as you can with Try Hack Me before jumping into Hack the Box. And again, just CTFs will help you prepare for this. Yep.
Also, what's a CTF like?
Yeah, a CTF is a capture the flag, which you may be more familiar of in maybe video games or just the physical game itself. But for cybersecurity, CTFs are, in a way, they are somewhat like puzzles that you use different tools and experience to eventually get a password that will, say, help you advance to the next level or earn points so that you are getting tracked on the leaderboard. And those involve skills such as maybe being able to go through network logs or using Wireshark to read such logs, or as well as just understanding basic web exploits, software exploits in general. Lisa?
Just a plug. I'm Lisa, the CTF lead, so I host the weekly CTFs. That means I find them and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this week. If you come in, I'll help you like work through levels and figure out how to like learn some basic CTF skills. So Capture the Flag is sometimes a competition-based event, but there are a lot of self-paced ones. So what it is there are different kind of challenges where you have to use some kind of hacking skill to find a flag. So something like a string of text that's hidden somewhere in the challenge that's presented, and once you get that, you can either advance to like another level or get points based on the kind of competition you have. So like an example is you get onto a server and then there's a file there, and it's when you read the file, there's like a jumble of characters. And that jumble of characters, you realize, oh, it's like encrypted in this like kind of hash, and then you can go decrypt it, and then you have your flag. So that's like a kind of basic overview of hash flag.
And
So,
are we doing a CTF this weekend, and is it a beginner one?
yes, it is. We are going to do Pico CTF, so it's an ongoing CTF where you like learn a lot of capture the flag basics. Be sure to come because not only will there be food, there will be CTFing, and it's always great. Woo!
Also, on a general note, Pico CTF is developed as somewhat sort of like a game, so it actually has a pretty good interface for doing it. So yep.
Question about the Interconnection class.
Yep.
Is there like do you get like a heavier like a better chance of being put in like based off of your major? Just
What major are you?
physics.
Okay. Yeah, apologies about that. I do have to check, but I do believe they are reserved for CS students for like the first and second round of registration.
Okay.
But I would try to keep in touch with the faculty that teach it, just in hopes of if you really pursue after it, they may just give you a permission number because of your interest in it. But again, they are reserved for CS, SC students because it fulfills a requirement for them for ascending. At the end of the day, they do need it first before graduation. Yep.
So, if I recall correctly, there is a security class specifically for non-computer science majors that you can
Yes.
take.
Yep.
I don't know what the class is, but I know it exists.
Yes, it does exist. I do not remember the exact number for it.
It might be
I-
320, but we're checking.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And I'm not too aware of all the topics that are covered in the course. The issue is that it may be not as helpful as opposed to say taking like RCP 220. Yep.
Yeah, it is CSC 320, Practical Computer Security for Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of the wording of that may be just understanding general security practices like
Yeah, I don't think it's,
have a good password.
yeah, it's
That-
not very,
I don't know.
As opposed to say
It's not very
input
technical,
validation of a
but-
password and knowing how to implement that.
I know you said it might be changing, but like, do you know what CP 321 is a like fulfills right now?
It is a tech elective for CSSE majors, but in the most recent computer science catalog, it is listed as an official requirement. It's either that or like a cryptography engineering course, and one more other. Yep.
Yeah, to add on to that, I believe it's the 2021, 2022 catalog year. CS majors, I don't know if SE is included, but CS is required to take a security class. And that list includes 321, 323, which is crypto and cryptography engineering, as well as, I believe, introduction to privacy. You
Yes,
get to choose from those three.
Yeah. Any other questions?
We also have privacy and security concentration, which was just added this year for people who are interested.
only
Open to
CS,
CS
SE
majors.
can't do that.
SE majors don't get it.
Yeah.
Just a note.
It kind of sounded like you had personal experience with the bug bounties.
Not with bug bounties. I just worked in product security with GoDaddy, and that was working on their logging infrastructure. So as you can see, that revolves around a lot of being able to maybe. And again, we intake a lot of data with everything that goes on in there, but hopefully that data will be useful for the instant response. That's basically what we do there. Was there any like specific question you had from that,
I
or?
was just wondering if there's a story behind like not meeting the.
Oh, that? Oh no, I just specify that very heavily because I don't want anyone arrested from me talking about new bug bounties. Because then, I blame false to me for saying. All right. Any other questions? If not, then, Tian.
If I wanted to get involved with undergraduate research, where would I start?
Oh. Very good question, fourth year.
Yeah. Hypothetically, if I was a first year, where would I start?
So there are certain faculty in the CS department that are heavily geared towards security. Some of them being Dr. Phoenix Fenn, Dr. Zachary Peterson, Dr. Bruce DeBrule, who is currently on sabbatical but will be back hopefully soon. Dr. Stephen Beard, who is new faculty, and I think Brett Hartman is new security faculty. But I don't know if he's doing any research because he's only a part-time lecturer who just came over from industry. But I would try to talk with them to see if they have any ongoing projects or just any research in general that they would appreciate having student help with. Or like I previously mentioned, the College of Engineering Summer Undergraduate Research Program is a great way to get onto an official project funded by the College of Engineering, get a good amount of money for it. And then at the end, you do like a whole research symposium where you present on any research that you did that past summer. To expand on that, personally, I did IoT security. So a lot of dealing with kind of like your Internet of Things connected devices at home. And we did a lot of security architecture of how that map plays out in a home environment. And I looked at it from the software engineering perspective of how IoT devices are basically riddled with a lot of vulnerabilities simply because the featuralities are focused much more than actually doing the security. Maybe you won't be able to necessarily easily hack into your Alexa, but other devices, I'm sure you would find something there.
What's the sign-up timeline for the College of Engineering Center research stuff?
Good question, and I would say I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
But yeah, again, reaching out to faculty will help, and you can always ask me if you're interested, since ITA for Dr. Phoenix. All right, if there's no more questions.
I was curious about like the learning more about computer networking.
Mhm.
I know there's a class that a lot of CPEs and computer science need to take, but if we're not in that major as well, what would you recommend just to learn about, learning more about that?
Let's see, I would start with looking further at the OSI model that I showed. And then from there, you can kind of deep dive into these specific layers to see, and I'm sure Jackson has an answer as well.
You can also like look into setting up a home lab type environment, so you can physically hands-on learn different networking tools, and there's a lot of cool things you can do there. I'm actually looking at getting one set up for me soon, so.
Yeah. We do that a lot over the command line?
Uh,
Just controlling all the computers and stuff?
Yeah, you can learn how to control, as well as configure and set up all of that.
Okay,
And
Yeah,
Lisa?
there's a lot you can do with that.
thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, TryHackMe actually has modules on network basics, so that's also a good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to reiterate a bit of what Jackson said, I forgot to mention earlier, having that home environment so you can test a lot of what you do and just play around is helpful, again, for resume fodder and just being able to talk about your experience, say, setting up a home lab and maintaining it, say, during an interview question.
Thank you.
Or go to the White Hat Lab, we also have network.
And yes, our white hat.
Our network's back, yay!
Wow.